The story begins by depicting a bustling, modern city overflowing with an abundance of food, people, and money, all fueled by what is described as senseless consumption and decadence. This city, standing tall as a supposed peak of humanity, is also called a forest of iron, a place whirlpooling with desire. However, this dazzling chaos is about to be disrupted because one day, a harbinger of destruction W98 is summoned forth in a dilapidated, graffiti-marked part of the city. This harbinger is a peculiar, cat-like creature with a single large eye, and its name is Yattara. It was summoned by a man who prostrated himself before it, having apparently given his life for this act. A quick glance around the room revealed the man's desire for the extinction of humanity. Yattara, however, could not care less about the man's wishes. It unceremoniously grabbed the summoner and consumed him with audible crunches and gulps. Yattara, the beast of gluttony, only cares about one thing: eating. Its appetite is insatiable, capable of chewing through steel and swallowing whole landscapes, not to be satisfied until entire nations are leveled. Humans are its favorite, and the man was merely an appetizer. After its meal, Yattara, with a growling stomach, began to move through the building. It possesses the ability to immediately sense any prey, including their numbers, species, and physical state. Its senses led it to a very messy apartment, a room in such shambles with scattered garbage that it was hard to believe anyone lived there. Yet, Yattara sensed life. Inside, it found a young girl sitting in a corner, and soon discovered another, smaller child with her. Yattara observed that the two children were severely malnourished, on the verge of fading away from starvation. This was a kind of suffering Yattara knew well, one that saps a person's will, flesh, and even hope. Outside, rain began to fall. Despite understanding their plight, Yattara's singular focus remained on eating. It menacingly approached the children, its preferences clear: humans over beef or pork, animals over inorganic material, and among humans, children were considered especially delicious. As Yattara drew near, the older child, a boy named Nenato, managed to get up using crutches and struck Yattara with one. Though clearly weak, Nenato confronted the creature, telling it to get out. Yattara was a bit surprised by this unexpected defiance from such a frail child. Nenato then asked if someone was inside Yattara and struck it again, causing his crutch to crack. Yattara swallowed the broken piece of crutch, finding it an unpleasant taste, and decided it needed a palate cleanser, an appetizer before it consumed all of humanity. Nenato quickly dashed away. Yattara extended its shadowy tendrils towards the children. Nenato desperately tried to wake the younger child, a small boy named Yuma, and his older sister, whom he called Nachon. He urged Nachon to wake up, warning her that a monster was going to eat them. Nachon, weak and disoriented, slowly came to. Nenato pleaded with her to get up, but she was despondent, remarking that it wasn't like they had much longer anyway. Nenato vehemently disagreed, insisting they weren't finished yet. He reminded her of their dreams. They came to this town to earn money, to get a family register, to buy their own house with a garden and separate rooms, to eat cake on their birthdays, and to lead a decent life, not to waste away in this dump. As Nenato tried to pull Nachon, he lost his grip on a crutch, and Yattara's tendrils snatched both crutches away. In the struggle, Nenato dropped a glass bottle. Seeing this, Nachon found a burst of strength and got up, using her own body to fend off Yattara's tendrils, telling Nenato to take Yuma and run. Yattara, meanwhile, seemed in no hurry. Nachon urged Nenato to take Yuma and head for the veranda. As Nenato and Yuma tried to escape to the veranda amidst the pouring rain, Yattara, never fretting, easily followed them, oozing along the wall. It had no reason to fret. Compared to its prey, it was all-powerful. Nachon turned to face Yattara, begging it to spare her brother. But Yattara had never once let a meal slip away. Nenato, seeing his sister confront the monster, shouted for her to run and get Yuma out, while she yelled back at him to run. Nachon then pushed Nenato out onto the veranda, sacrificing herself to face Yattara alone. The creature grabbed Nachon, pulled her back into the apartment, and consumed her. After a satisfied burp, Yattara turned its attention to Nenato, who was now alone on the veranda. In a desperate act, Nenato threw a potted plant at Yattara, hitting it. Yattara simply tilted its head, then grabbed Nenato, holding him upside down. As he dangled, dripping wet, Nenato looked down at the city lights, seeing glimpses of its luxury. A wealthy woman dining extravagantly, a father lovingly carrying his child, people walking under umbrellas in the rain. He could only wonder, why? His gaze then fell upon their own squalid apartment, the uneaten food, their worn-out shoes, and he thought, Stop screwing around. With his last breath, he yelled at Yattara, if you're gonna eat something better, idiot dash. Yattara then swallowed him. After consuming Nanato, Yattara pondered the situation. The taste of Nanato was firm and lively, incomparable to the first corpse it ate. It was Yattara's first taste of living flesh in 1,000 years, and it was delicious. Yet, it also brought a sensation akin to pain, an oddly familiar feeling that Yattara was well acquainted with from its distant past. This was a taste it had yet to feel tired of, but it also wished to switch things up a bit. As it savored the flavor of the children, Yattara wondered if this city held what it truly desired, an undiscovered flavor, a new thrill yet to be felt. Yattara looked out from the veranda, thinking harder than it ever had in its long existence. A single goal formed in its mind, thoughts swirled, and eventually, a very special idea came to it. Later, the broken plant pot lay on the veranda. Inside the messy apartment, Nanato, Neichan, and Yuma were now tied to chairs around their table. Nanato was the first to stir, and as he regained consciousness, he saw his siblings also tied up but alive. He called out to them, and they slowly began to wake up, groaning in confusion. Suddenly, Yattara appeared and, opening its vast mouth, dumped a massive pile of food onto the table in front of them, convenience store meals, bento boxes, and snacks. Nanato, bewildered, asked what was happening and why Yattara hadn't eaten them. Neichan checked on Yuma. Yattara's tendrils then untied the children and began to offer them food, even peeling wrappers. Overcome by extreme hunger, Yuma was the first to start eating. Soon, Neichan and a still wary Nanato also began to eat ravenously, stuffing themselves with the unexpected bounty. Yattara watched them, its own stomach growling, and thought that if it was going to eat them anyway, it might as well prepare its meal properly. The next morning, Nanato woke up at the table, still surrounded by leftover food. He looked around and panicked when he realized Yuma and Neichan were gone. He found Neichan trying to drag Yuma away, urging him to hurry. Nanato, confused, asked what she was doing. To his shock, Yuma was playfully patting Yattara's single eye, as if it were a pet, cooing, meow meow. Neichan quickly pulled Yuma away from Yattara and bowed deeply, profusely apologizing for her brother's, Yuma's, misconduct and addressing Yattara as, "Oh great angel." Nanato was utterly aghast, telling Neichan she was an idiot. Neichan, however, was convinced that Yattara was an angel who had taken pity on them and that the food was a blessing. Nanato furiously argued that it was a man-eating monster that had, in fact, already eaten them and then spat them out. Meanwhile, Yattara was shown eating the withered potted plant that Nanato had thrown at it earlier. The plant, which the children had worked tirelessly to grow, gave Yattara a sensation similar to eating a human. It mused that it naturally prefers its meals to taste good. Yattara reflected that humans are nurturing creatures, flourishing through the cultivation of crops. This, in Yattara's mind, was precisely why children, raised with so much care and effort, were so delicious. A new thought then occurred to it. What would a child raised by oneself taste like? Yattara considered what it would feel like to consume its own offspring, imagining it would be a very special feeling indeed, the first new flavor it would taste in 1,000 years. While Yattara contemplated this, Nanato continued to argue with Neichan, insisting that Yattara was up to something sinister and hadn't helped them out of kindness. Nanato then had a realization. Yattara could spit things back out after eating them, meaning it had indeed spat them and the crutch out earlier. He declared that Yattara was definitely planning something. Yattara had made up its mind. It would raise these children. Nanato, overhearing or sensing this, began to panic, frantically trying to open the apartment door, only to find it locked. Neichan, still believing in their angel, tried to calm him, assuring him that Yattara had a plan. Yattara, observing them, thought to itself that, after all, hunger is the best spice. It looked forward to eventually experiencing that new, unique flavor, feeling something special blooming within itself. Their small, messy apartment had been transformed into the perfect ranch for Yattara's purposes, while Nanato and Neichan discovered that the front door was now firmly locked. The story continues in the apartment where Yattara, the cat-like monster, is keeping the children. The older sister, whose name is revealed to be Setami, scolds her younger brother Yuma for using Yattara, whom she calls an angel, as a trampoline. Yuma, bouncing happily on Yattara's back, refuses to stop until Setami threatens to withhold his pudding for the day, at which point he immediately complies. Yattara seems unperturbed by being used as a plaything. Suddenly, a loud thud is heard, and Setami and Yuma discover that Nanato has been trying to break through the floorboards in an attempt to escape. Yattara looks on with an amused expression as Setami asks Nanato what he thinks he's doing, and Yuma gleefully exclaims that Nichan, Nanato, should come play with Meow Meow, Yattara. Setami sighs, realizing Nanato was trying to escape again. Later, at the table, Nanato is furious, demanding to know how Setami can be so calm living with a monster. Setami calmly eats, pointing out that it has been 10 whole days and Yattara hasn't done anything to them, so they are probably fine. Nanato slams the table, insisting that Yattara is loading them up with food and keeping them trapped with some weird power, raising them like cattle to butcher and eat them one day. He is certain Yattara will fatten them up and then make them its dinner. Setami asks Yuma if he needs to go potty, trying to change the subject, while Nanato declares that he plans to try escaping again, believing Yattara will have to leave to get more food eventually. Setami, however, is hesitant, wondering where they would even go and pointing out the risks if the police or the organization spotted them, as there's no one they can go to for help. Nanato, using his crutches, says he'll try a different spot on the ceiling next time. Setami worries that even if Yattara wants to fatten them up, it will take a while since they are currently skin and bones, suggesting they are safe for now. Just then Yuma announces, "I pooped." Setami tries to further dissuade Nanato from his escape plans, mentioning that his injured leg still needs to heal and that she heard about an awful disease going around the city, with people being told to stay home. She encourages him to just eat and rest, assuring him they have plenty of food. That night, as Setami and Yuma sleep soundly, with Yuma even calling Yattara Great Angel, and wanting to play in his sleep, Nanato lies awake, troubled. He thinks about how they've been betrayed and used in the past, believing no one will ever help them and that he can't trust a single soul. He grits his teeth, vowing that the monster will never eat his siblings again and that he has to protect them. As he sleeps, Yattara approaches and takes a bite out of his leg, then quietly spits the piece out. Setami and Yuma remain asleep nearby. Yattara has been doing this every night since its arrival, checking to see if the flavor of the children has changed, specifically if that special feeling it seeks has bloomed within them. So far, it has not, and they taste no different. Yattara is puzzled. The children have grown bigger and livelier thanks to the nutrients it provided, yet their flavor remains unchanged, and nothing special has bloomed within Yattara itself. It wonders if raising offspring requires more than simple watering or providing food. The next day, Setami and Yuma are joyfully thanking their great angel Yattara because it has provided not only food like pudding but also other useful items such as soap, hairspray, deodorant, bandages, and loose leaf paper. Nanato watches with suspicion as Setami exclaims how handy these things are. Yuma then asks Setami, "Huh? What are you?" "Hey, come on." And Nanato confronts her, asking what is going on, as Yattara brought stuff other than food. Setami admits she asked for all of it. Nanato is surprised she can talk to Yattara. Setami clarifies that she can't talk, but she can draw maps and pictures of things they want, and Yattara seems to understand and then brings them the items. She explains that the local store frequently changes its merchandise, so she thought to look through Yattara's garbage, the items it brings. Nanato realizes they can communicate, just not with words. Suddenly, Nanato has an idea and tells Yattara he has a request, asking for its help. He shows Yattara a drawing of their current location and points to the tallest building in the area on the map, indicating a big, black box on the top floor that he needs, emphasizing its importance. He bows deeply, telling Yattara it's his only hope. Yattara silently leaves. As soon as it's gone, Yuma wants to play, and Setami is surprised Nanato asked the thing for help. Nanato, however, immediately starts trying to break the glass of the veranda door, revealing his request was a distraction. He yells that he's getting out. Setami is shocked, asking if he's going to jump from the veranda. Nanato clarifies he's not jumping all the way down but just to the next veranda below, which he believes is empty, so he can break in and leave through their door. He tells Setami his elaborate request was to keep Yattara busy for a while. Setami thinks it's too reckless, but Nanato is insistent, telling her to pack a bag quickly. Yuma, confused, asks where Meow Meow went and where his Nichan is. Nanato argues with Setami, who is still calling Yattara an angel, insisting that it's a man-eating monster and they are nothing more than a meal to it. He declares that he will protect her and Yuma and that they don't need Yattara's help. As they argue, Yuma, calling out Meow Meow, "Come here," climbs onto the veranda railing. Nanato yells, "Idiot," as Yuma slips and falls. Nanato lunges and manages to grab Yuma's hand, leaving them both dangling precariously, with Nanato struggling to hold on as Yuma screams for him not to let go. Setemi watches in terror. Nanato, straining, considers trying to swing Yuma to the other veranda but realizes it's too risky and they might all fall. He blames himself, thinking this is all his fault because he lost his temper. He remembers their harsh past, feeling it's their small family against a cruel, uncaring world where no one ever helps. Just as his grip is about to fail and Yuma is about to fall, Yattara appears, having created a hole in the ceiling of the veranda above, and its shadowy tendril snatches Yuma. It then grabs Nanato and Setemi as well. Yattara, forming a cape-like shape, gently floats them all down, landing them safely back on their own veranda. Yuma, completely unfazed, exclaims, "Again! Meow meow! Again!" Setemi rushes to hug Yuma, relieved he's alright, while Nanato stares in disbelief. Setemi tearfully scolds Yuma for being a dummy and says he could have died, then thanks the great angel for saving them. Nanato, overcome with emotion, apologizes to Setemi for taking his anger out on her. Setemi reassures him, saying no one is at fault and that she knows he just wants what's best for them. Yuma thanks Nanato. Yattara, meanwhile, had seen through Nanato's deceptive scheme immediately but fulfilled his request anyway, bringing the box, to see if anything would change. It feels no different but is in no great hurry, content to wait until nightfall when it can taste for itself. The box, Yattara retrieved, which it had stuck to the wall, turns out to be the object Nanato drew. Setemi notices Nanato's hands are injured from the ordeal, and Yattara promptly provides bandages. Nanato awkwardly thanks Yattara for saving them, though he mutters that it's still Yattara's fault they were in that mess. He clarifies he's thanking it out of politeness for saving them but hasn't forgotten the other stuff. Yattara then takes a chomp out of Nanato again. This time, Yattara experiences a new flavor, the taste of delight, a sensation it has craved for 1,000 years. It realizes that to raise something, one must give not only nutrients but also protection. By keeping them alive, building trust, it's a special requirement. Nanato's unusual actions, though intended to deceive, had piqued its curiosity, leading Yattara to act and thus change the taste. The difference was minimal, like adding a grain of salt to the Sahara, but it was there. Further cultivation is a must. Yattara chuckles at the simplicity of it all, now believing raising offspring is easy. It will feed and protect them, and by doing so, their flavor will grow richer. Nanato, meanwhile, confusedly asks Setemi what Yattara just did to his butt. Setemi then finds a 10,000 lib bill stuck to Nanato's shorts. The children are shocked and excited, wondering where it came from and what they should buy. As Yattara's stomach growls, it suddenly produces an enormous shower of money, filling the apartment with stacks and bundles of 10,000 lib bills. The children are astounded. Nanato asks Yattara how it did that. Yattara silently points to Nanato's drawing of the Dino Group's building and the box he had requested. News reports on television then show the Dino Group's building with its very top floor having vanished without a trace. The Dino Group's president is shown on TV, stating that the criminal must have destroyed the building to take off with the money, which was 10 billion lib supposedly meant for charity to support impoverished children. He declares they will catch the culprits and have the money returned. Back in the apartment, surrounded by the stolen cash, Yattara spits out the actual box Nanato had drawn, which is now revealed to be a simple container, while Nanato exclaims he didn't ask for this, the money. Then with the sounds of police sirens blaring as numerous police cars and even an ambulance speed through the streets, creating a manhunt that the narrator describes as putting movies to shame. Inside the money-filled apartment, Nanato, Setemi, and Yuma peer out the window at the commotion below. Yuma wonders if it's an ambulance, while Setemi comments on the racket, and Nanato nervously asks if they are looking for the money. Yattara stands amidst the piles of cash. Setemi panics, asking what they should do, while Yattara reflects that it brought the money with the best of intentions, but apparently there were consequences. Nanato suddenly gets an idea and tells Setemi and Yuma not to just stand there but to eat, meaning stuff the money into Yattara's mouth. He figures that with so many cops around, they won't have a clue who the culprit is or where the money went. He instructs them to gather up every last bill and shove it into Yattara's mouth to hide it, believing the police would never think to check a monster's stomach. Setemi, while helping, wonders where Yattara even found all this money, noting they have at least 100 million. Nanato gets a determined look, telling Setemi that this could be their chance. Setemi is initially hesitant, reminding Nanato that the money isn't theirs, but Nanato passionately argues that with this kind of cash, They could buy a house just for them, free to live how they want, and no longer be beaten awake or spotted sleeping in a storage room, the life they always dreamed of. Setami is swayed by his words. Yuma, meanwhile, complains that the bath doesn't even work and that the place isn't theirs and they don't have electricity. Nanato counters, asking if they're going to hole up there forever, and Setami adds that they can't use the money if they don't know where it came from. Just then the doorbell rings. A voice from outside announces, "Excuse me. I'm with the Mijiyama police force. Can I have a moment of your time?" The children freeze in panic. The policeman explains they received a report of a child falling from their unit and asks if they can answer a few questions. Setami whispers about who knows where they are and that they can't have figured things out yet. The policeman continues to call out, but the children remain silent, peeking through the door. Suddenly, the person outside starts banging on the door, yelling, "Damn brats! I hear you in there, you little foreign punks. Get out here this instant. Your kind ain't allowed in my building. You don't even live here, you damn filthy pests." The children realize it's the aggressive building manager. Nanato, in a desperate move, holds up a drawing of the building manager and points to Yattara, mouthing, "Eat him." Setami is horrified, whispering that it's just wrong, but Nanato argues they have no choice and that if the manager calls for backup, they'll bust the door down. Yuma then holds up his own colorful, childlike drawing, and Yattara seems to understand the situation. Yattara considers that eliminating the man would count as protection, and his malicious intentions are evident. However, Yattara pauses to think if that would truly be the best course of action, as it regularly subjugates opponents through sheer power, and no one has ever managed to best it. Yuma, seeing Yattara hesitate, exclaims, "Look, meow meow. It's you and a beetle dash," and then presents another drawing. Yattara then promptly gulps down Yuma. Setami and Nanato are shocked, with Setami yelling for Yattara to spit him out, while Nanato exclaims, "Seriously? You're doing this now?" Yattara then also swallows Nanato. It then transforms, becoming much larger and puffing up like a pufferfish, with a net-like pattern appearing on its skin as it stands before the door, still being pounded by the manager. The door suddenly bursts open, and the manager stumbles in, exclaiming, "Whoa." He sees another man, an older gentleman, standing in the doorway, who asks if he's alright and says the door just opened out of nowhere. The manager, flustered, tells the old man he saw some kids and to just grab them. The old man, looking around the now empty-looking apartment, asks the manager to show himself and then says there's no one there. The manager insists he heard a scream and that their stuff is out, but the old man claims not to buy it. The manager, increasingly agitated, searches the apartment, muttering that the place must be haunted and that the kids must be somewhere, even speculating that the kids he saw were already dead. Yattara, having blended into the ceiling with its camouflage, suddenly drops down, engulfing the two men and the children, who were presumably inside Yattara, in a large, sack-like form, and then poof, they are all gone. They reappear in a different, run-down apartment. Setami asks where they are, and Yuma says he has a really bad feeling about this place, noting the old "Extinction of Humanity" poster on the wall from the original summoner's room. Nanato cautiously approaches a door, listening, while Setami tells him not to leave her. The building manager's voice is heard outside, arguing with the old man, who claims they must have heard wrong and that there were no kids there at all. Setami realizes the building manager has just left. Yuma remembers that a creepy old dude used to live there and gave him candy. Setami has a vague memory of this too, and Nanato wonders where he is now. Yattara, having successfully avoided a dangerous situation, gets a pat from Yuma. Setami thanks their great angel for saving them again. Yattara reflects that subduing enemies with force is simple, but if one were to fall, more could come in its place, leading to endless conflict. Constant pursuit would wear away at the children's spirits, and their health and new flavors would suffer, which would be problematic. So, Yattara fled in order to avoid conflict. Back in the new apartment, Setami is delighted to find that the power and water are working, and Yuma has found ice cream. Nanato checks the front door and confirms they are still locked in. Setami, holding an ice cream bar, declares, "You know what we gotta do next." The scene shifts to the children joyfully taking a bath, splashing and exclaiming how good it feels after a whole year of only being able to wipe themselves down with towels. They remark on how greasy their hair was and how baths are the best, though Setami feels a bit bad using it without permission. Yuma asks for ice cream afterward. Yattara watches from the doorway. Yattara has set two rules for itself: avoid all conflict and cause no trouble. To do so, it would need to keep ordinary human behaviors in mind, meaning when in danger, it would have to run and hide. In other words, keep the peace. For example, it couldn't consume a human just because it was hungry. The new apartment, whose owner had been eaten, had utilities and was an improvement over the old one. It was the perfect nest. Yattara narrows its eyes, thinking there was too much to be cautious of and wondering if raising things was supposed to be so simple, musing that surely there must be an easier way as it didn't need to be so concerned over these things. Just then Yuma from the bath calls out, "Come take a bath," and asks why Yattara is sick because he doesn't think the angel bathes. Nanato interjects, they could join us. It did save our hides. But he quickly adds, "But don't go gettin' the wrong idea. I still don't trust you one bit, ya hear?" H. As Yattara suddenly appears in the tub with them with a giant SH. The children playfully complain about the water and Yattara not washing off first, while Yattara remains in no hurry, observing that changes are already occurring. The building manager from their previous apartment is then shown on the phone, furiously reporting that foreign kids escaped from the veranda and that he saw 2 of them, suspecting they are part of a troublesome ring. He hangs up, frustrated that the police are too busy with the 10 billion LIB case. He then sees a flyer for the Native Citizen Conservation Association, calling all anti-foreigner citizens, strengthen the mainland to protect native citizens. He decides to take the risk and calls the number on the flyer, his name revealed to be Ozu, manager of an apartment complex in Mijiyama Ward. He tells the person on the other end that he saw their flyer and has something to talk to them about, saying it's for the sake of all us natives and that his building needs some pest control. Yattara is shown with the children, seemingly unaware of this new, ominous development. The children are in their new apartment, surrounded by the piles of money Yattara brought. Yuma is playfully interacting with Yattara, pretending to be a warrior king with a katana, a rolled-up object, on his shoulder, while Setami sits on the floor, counting stacks of bills. Nanato is also counting money nearby. Setami exclaims, "Hiya," and tells Nanato, "Ready? Let's go," as she prepares to throw a bundle of cash, but Nanato accidentally thwacks her on the head with the bundle he's holding, thinking she was attacking him. Setami cries out, "Gah," and Nanato exclaims, "Ah," in surprise. Yuma turns to Yattara, then looks back at Nanato, who has been thrown by Setami and is now seen squeezing a wet cloth over her head as she looks annoyed. Yuma apologizes, and Setami complains that Nanato made her lose count. Setami then gets up, holding a cleaning rag, and tells the boys to stop playing around and help her clean. Nanato complains that he's not playing, he's working, counting money, and remarks that there's so much money it will take forever to count, adding it's not even theirs in the first place. Setami scolds him, saying that if they're going to keep squatting there, they should at least keep it clean, and he knows how important that is. Nanato reluctantly agrees. He then says that even a crummy place is better than nothing and that if they see how much money they've got, they can decide how to spend it, starting with a family register. He also mentions that it'll be tough, but then they can go to hospitals and schools. Setami adds that going around using money that came from nowhere could end badly. Yuma suggests they help clean the floor, and Setami tells him he can help scrub the toilet. Nanato remarks that Setami is such a neat freak, and she retorts that the dump is beyond normal. Setami then assigns Yuma to the floor and considers what part of the dump she should clean, suggesting Nanato can sit while he works on the toilet. Nanato protests, but Setami, having found some cleaner under the sink, is already starting. Yuma and Nanato then start teasing Setami from the veranda as she cleans, with Yuma shouting, "Hey Yuma, get a load of Nachan's butt," and Nanato joining in with, "Bibu haha, nice butt." Setami yells at them to shut it. After a hard day's work cleaning, the children enjoy a nice, warm bath together. Yuma challenges Nanato to hold his breath for 10 seconds. While relaxing in the tub, Setami mentions that she found the old guy's previous tenants' bank book and that it seems he had money pulled out for bills and rent every month. Nanato wonders if he had almost 3 million LIB left. Setami thinks they should be set for a while, but Nanato expresses doubt, thinking the money must be in Yattara's belly by now. Setami isn't sure, musing that the old man might come back one day. Nanato dismisses the thought, saying whatever, who cares about that? Setami then playfully splashes Nanato. Later, Setami is looking at the washing machine and says they should make use of that thing's weird powers, suggesting they play their cards right and improve their situation. Nanato is seen wearing a towel, and Setami tells him to stop as Yuma looks on. Setami then notices Nanato wearing his old, torn pants and asks if he's seriously wearing them again, pointing out the giant hole in the butt. Nanato explains his other clothes are still at their old place and that it's a little late for that. Setemi tells him to just ask that thing, yeah, to grab them. Nanato is reluctant, but Setemi insists, saying the angel once looked through the garbage for them. She tells him to go ahead and ask. Nanato approaches Yattara, who brings him a large, tied-up trash bag. Nanato and Yuma look confused. Setemi examines the bag and exclaims, "This is for me?" Nanato asks what's in there, and Setemi, looking disgusted, says it's a trash bag from the dump. As she opens it, she pulls out a piece of clothing. It turns out to be a shirt dress, new clothes for Setemi. She is amazed and excitedly tries it on, asking Yattara if it got this for her and if she can really have it. She immediately puts it on, finding it a little big but still pleased. Nanato comments that she's quite bold and not hesitant at all, while Yuma laughs. Setemi, touched, bows deeply to Yattara, saying, "I truly am in your debt. Thank you ever so much. We owe our continued survival to you, great angel. Clothes, food, a place to live." Nanato tells her not to bow down over one piece of clothing and asks if Yattara will cut it out already. Yuma, munching on something, declares, "Meow Meow's an angel? That's right. A real angel in the flesh. It's done so much to help us." Setemi asks how she looks, and Yuma says, "Best ever." Setemi then tells Nanato that she's been thinking they should give this thing a name, as calling it Meow Meow and Angel makes her skin crawl, especially if they're going to live together. Nanato, initially resistant, saying, "Don't think this means I've accepted ya," eventually agrees it's basic logic. Yuma suggests they figure out a name for Meow Meow together. Setemi suggests Yuma as a name for Yattara, but Nanato is unsure about that. Later that night, the children are asleep and Yattara watches over them. Yattara grins, thinking things are going well. It reflects that the youngest, Yuma, had taken to it immediately and the girl, Setemi, had been easily swayed by gifts like the clothing, which Yattara found in a dumpster and luckily worked out. Even the boy, Nanato, had softened some since their initial encounter. Yattara muses that if this continues, new, richer flavors are a given. However, it still has yet to understand that special feeling, a special flavor born by raising something. While Nanato seems to hold it within him, Yattara has yet to confirm this for itself. As Yattara sways back and forth thinking, it is suddenly overcome by an intense wave of exhaustion. Its vision grows blurry, and its footwork becomes unsteady. Unlike humans, Yattara requires no sleep and thus has not felt this sensation in ages. Unable to fight it, its consciousness fades, and it falls to the floor with a thud. That day, Yattara slept for the first time in 1,000 years. It had been around 10 days since it was summoned, and it had only eaten once, the summoner. As a result, its body was forcing itself to rest. It was the longest Yattara had ever gone without a meal. As it slept, with dawn only a matter of hours away, Yattara had a dream. It dreamed of a young boy in a dusty, impoverished village. A rock is thrown, hitting the boy. He continues walking, eyes cast downwards, through a marketplace where people glare at him with spite and follow him with their cold stares, his own shadow and blood trailing behind him. He arrives alone at a rundown shack in a forest, greeted by nothing but a cold, damp space. The only thing lurking behind the boy's eye was loneliness. The dream ends, and Yattara's single eye is shown, then Yuma is seen waking up. He walks through the apartment and finds Setemi collapsed on the floor. He calls out, "Nachin," and then rushes to Nanato, telling him he got ice and to bring it over. They find Setemi burning up with fever, covered in bruises and unresponsive. Nanato and Yuma are extremely worried. Meanwhile, Yattara is shown outside on the veranda, also looking unwell, as birds land on it and peck at it without any reaction from the creature. Nanato, looking at his sister and then towards the veranda, wonders what the heck is going on with both Setemi and Yattara. Yattara, now tiny and weak on the veranda with birds pecking at it, calmly analyzes its situation. Its body is now the size of a puppy, and its strength has decreased as well. The loss of power is evident, though it feels fine, just significantly weaker. This has never happened before, and it takes no time for Yattara to determine the issue. Its stomach is empty. It realizes it hasn't eaten in about 10 days and has never gone this long without sustenance, assuming this is the cause of its abnormal state. Meanwhile, Nanato and Yuma are tending to Setemi, who is still feverish and bruised. Nanato wonders why this happened and if Setemi fell. Yuma points out her bruises, and Nanato suddenly exclaims, "I get it now. This is the stain disease." He explains it's a virus that stains a patient's skin like ink and spread through town like crazy last year. He theorizes that the dress Setami got from the dump must have had some germs on it. He questions how it's possible since they never go outside and why only Setami is sick, given her usually strong stomach. Yuma then remembers there was a slip of paper in the bag with the dress. Nanato recalls crumpling and tossing it. They frantically search the trash bag Yattara brought, and Yuma finds the crumpled paper. It's a notice that reads, "Infected patient's clothing, incinerate immediately." Nanato immediately rips the dress off Setami, telling Yuma to give him a hand and that they have to get rid of it and her clothes. He then takes Yuma to get clean, leaving the weakened Yattara to observe Setami, who is now gravely ill with at most 3 days left. Yattara notes she was contagious and her body was weak, and the sudden emergency had everyone at their limits. In these unprecedented times, Yattara decides to observe. Nanato and Yuma are in the bathroom, with Nanato telling Yuma to dry off with a clean towel and not touch the one from yesterday, as they have no more clean clothes except underwear. Nanato wonders how they'll get through this and what they can do, concluding there's only one thing: they'll have to ask that thing, Yattara, for help. He reasons there must be a cure for the stain disease by now, suggesting medicine, though the hospital is out of the question. He bets it's available on the black market and exclaims he can just go buy it, or perhaps an exam is needed first. He turns around and sees the apartment door is open. He and Yuma cautiously approach. Yuma asks if Meow Meow went out and if it's here. Nanato tries the doorknob and finds it unlocked. As he peers out, a large rat squeaks nearby, and Nanato recoils in fear, sweating profusely. Outside in an alleyway, the now tiny Yattara is surrounded by rats. It easily chomps down on several, its body growing slightly with each one. It thinks that if hunger is the cause, feeding is the solution. When Yattara grew, its suspicions were confirmed. It decides to start with small animals, preferring to eat the children, but its current size makes that difficult. More importantly, illness ruins flavor. Yattara concludes that the girl has likely infected the other two, and they aren't worth the trouble to cure. It has no idea how to cure them, the flavor may be ruined forever, and it's risky with its unclear steps. Therefore, there is no reason to help cure the children. It's not worth the effort. Yattara decides to leave the children and their apartment behind. It reasons it would be best to pick new children, and it wouldn't be difficult as there were plenty in the area, a buffet of options. The children were mere livestock raised for new flavors and are easily replaceable. Their few weeks together provided valuable experience, which will prove useful next time, ensuring the next ones will taste even better. Yattara feels no shame nor anguish. There was no need to be concerned with them. Everything is a meal, and it cares only for eating, wishing only to feed and regain its strength. As it crawls away, a cat appears and attacks Yattara, kicking it repeatedly. Yattara, now looking more like a small, shadowy blob, is sent rolling. It tumbles into the street just as a truck approaches, the driver exclaiming, "What the?" The truck crashes. Yattara is then shown flying through the air, having been snatched by a large hawk. For the first time, the gluttonous apex predator, Yattara, is the prey. Now it cannot even feed. Back in the apartment, Nanato, still in his underwear, cautiously opens the door to apartment 705, having seen the hawk fly by earlier. He tells Yuma they lucked out and that now is their chance to escape. He instructs Yuma to search the room and bring any clothes or whatever might be useful, saying they gotta hurry. He starts rummaging through that thing's trash. Yuma, looking towards Setami, asks when Meow Meow is coming back and if it's getting Nachon medicine and will help her, because Meow Meow's an angel, Dash. Nanato bluntly tells him that thing ain't coming back. It opened the door and left, abandoning them, and that's just how it is. Yuma looks crestfallen. Nanato adds that it's not like it was family, it's a man-eating monster, and it actually did them a favor by leaving. He tells Yuma to pack whatever he wants and hurry. Yuma starts to cry. Nanato tells him not to cry, as acting sad won't fix anything and will just make him feel worse. He firmly tells Yuma to listen, that they are the only ones Setami's got, and it's up to them to help her. He grabs Yuma, saying they're gonna bust their butts and save Nei-san because he doesn't want her to die, and he knows Yuma doesn't either. Just as he finishes his determined speech, the door creaks open, and Ozu, the building manager from their previous apartment, stands there, rubbing his chin and chuckling. Called it, a criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. Ozu steps into the apartment, wearing a cap with N on it, and tells Nanato, "Good thing you're so dumb. I knew you'd fall into my trap." He holds up a device that starts beeping. Nanato, terrified, wonders if the man is a cop or a resident. He thinks if the man just lives there, he can use the hidden cash to bribe him. Ozu, however, declares, "You're fish in a barrel now." Nanato realizes this is the worst-case scenario. To this man, they are less than human, and they can't take this lying down because these guys live to harass foreigners. Ozu, now joined by another man in a similar uniform, states, "Every damn day, more of you come crawling out. You break the rules, and all the while, you play the victim. You're a scourge on our country." He pulls out a pair of pruning shears, declaring, "Time for an extermination. The Native Citizen Conservation Association. I'll beat you right out of this country, and I'll make it hurt." As he speaks, the birds Yattara had eaten earlier are shown flying around Nanato and Yuma, cawing, "They're all food now." Oyamata is being brutally attacked by a man while a younger child, Yuma, calls out in distress to his older brother. Oyamata is restrained and his head is slammed against the floor by the assailant, who expresses disgust for people like Oyamata, accusing them of playing the victim and being criminals. This assailant, an older man, grinds his foot into Oyamata's back, while his associate, distinguished by a cap with IN on it, observes the scene. Oyamata recognizes these men as part of the Native Citizen Conservation Association, a group he knows to be a violent organization targeting foreigners despite their claims of protecting native citizens' rights. The older assailant continues his verbal abuse, blaming a lenient immigration policy for the presence of people he deems filth, and then turns his attention to Yuma, who flinches under his gaze. Oyamata briefly considers trying to bribe their way out but quickly dismisses the thought, believing the men would simply take the money. The assailant then offers Oyamata a supposed easy way out by handing him over to immigration if he cooperates. As Oyamata is forced to move, the assailant orders Yuma to put his hands behind his back. In a sudden act of defiance, Oyamata breaks free and shoves his attacker, urging Yuma to run and escape. As Yuma dashes for an exit, the associate with the iron cap intercepts him at the doorway, mockingly referring to Yuma as a little rat. This man then proceeds to violently beat Yuma, causing Oyamata to cry out helplessly. The older assailant commends his associate for quickly capturing Yuma, remarking that resistance leads to such consequences. Soon after, the landlord arrives, expressing surprise that the men are already leaving and inquiring if they've contacted immigration. The older assailant confirms they did, stating that further investigation is not their concern as they are soldiers, defending their homeland, not investigators. The landlord then voices his frustrations about the actual tenant, Yanda, being behind on rent and uncontactable, questioning how Oyamata and Yuma entered the premises and if Yanda is aware of their presence. Meanwhile, Oyamata, still under duress, desperately tries to think of a way to save himself and Yuma, realizing that a creature called Yattara, which he had relied on, seems to have abandoned them. The assailant's attention is then drawn to a noise, and they discover the small, dark, eye-bearing creature, Yattara. Oyamata shouts that Yattara belongs to him, and at that moment, Yattara begins to wail loudly, confusing the men. The associate with the iron cap strikes Yuma to silence him as Yattara continues its unsettling cries. Emboldened or perhaps desperate, Oyamata unleashes a verbal tirade against his attackers, questioning their misplaced pride, calling them pathetic bullies, and telling them to go home. The man with the iron cap retaliates by grinding his foot on Yattara, causing the creature to throb in pain, a sensation Oyamata seems to feel as well, crying out in agony. The assailant then points a gun at Yattara, taunting it and asking if it's ready to die, while Yuma pleads for him to stop. Oyamata watches with grim determination as the man threatens to shoot. Just as the assailant is about to act, telling Yattara to repent from hell, a flock of birds, including a hawk, suddenly descends and attacks Yattara, snatching it away and carrying it high above the city. Yattara is then dropped onto the roof of a moving train, which speeds away. Aboard the train, Yattara senses through pre-existing connections that the children are in danger. Though the train carries it further away, Yattara initially considers leaving the city for the countryside, thinking it would be safer to raise a child there and sever old ties. However, a powerful wave of unease washes over Yattara, a feeling that solidifies from an elusive smoke into something tangible, like an unseen hand. Compelled by this sensation, Yattara launches itself from the train with great force, zooming back through the city and crashing through the door of the apartment where Oyamata and Yuma are still being held. The sudden reappearance of Yattara startles everyone. Oyamata tries to warn Yattara, while the older assailant expresses surprise at another one. As the man with the iron cap aims his gun at Oyamata, dragging himself across the floor, warns him that if he shoots Yattara, he will face consequences, alluding to stains on the floor and implying Yattara's dangerous nature. The assailant, ignoring Oyamada's attempt to move, stomps on his hand and prepares to shoot him, telling him to stay still. Before the assailant can fire, a large, dark, V-shaped extension of Yattara slams into both assailants, sending them flying. In the aftermath, Yuma coughs while Oyamada lies injured. Yattara, now smaller, is near Yuma, who crawls to his older brother, trying to rouse him. When Oyamada awakens, he is shocked to see Yattara's diminished size, questioning if it flew back and shrank. He intuits that a strong force, originating from the room and specifically from them, pulled Yattara back, leaving it no choice but to return. It's revealed that countless threads extending from Oyamada and Yuma had wrapped around Yattara, preventing its escape and compelling its return. Oyamada tearfully asks Yattara if it came back solely to save them, and the creature slides closer. The final panels show the assailants have been shot, and Yattara perceives a new flavor before its eye. Oyamada is injured and bleeding on the floor. The assailant with the iron cap, Dover, looks on in shock as his older associate lies motionless. Despite his injuries, Oyamada grabs the small, creature-like Yattara, which suddenly flies off, dragging Oyamada along with it much to Dover's surprise. As they move, Yattara squeezes Oyamada, causing him pain, before a part of Yattara seems to pop off and hit Oyamada, leaving him weakened on the ground. Yattara, now small and wobbly, approaches Oyamada, who weakly observes its diminished size and asks if it's all right. Just then, Dover catches up to them, gun raised, and begins firing indiscriminately. The bullets, however, pass harmlessly through Yattara, which emits a strange sound and appears almost ethereal, much to Dover's confusion as he empties his clip. Oyamada coughs nearby, having avoided the direct gunfire. Yattara is shown to be afraid, not for its own life since the bullets couldn't harm it, but it seems confused and unsure why it instinctually saved Oyamada. Dover, still armed, shouts at them to leave or risk getting hit by a stray bullet, claiming he's on duty as curious onlookers begin to gather. The narrative notes that Yattara's decision to use its strength to save Oyamada was a poor one, as it left the creature unable to move or defend itself. Dover, seeing Yattara vulnerable, orders his now-recovered older associate to grab the children. Yattara is terrified by its own uncharacteristic actions and confused by the stirring emotions within it as Dover approaches, intending to stomp on it. Oyamada, witnessing this, throws himself over Yattara to protect it. Dover, enraged, kicks and beats Oyamada, demanding to know what Yattara is and calling it a monster worshipped by foreigners, while Yattara itself has no understanding of why Oyamada would shield it. Dover, furious with Oyamada's interference, reloads his gun, threatening to kill them both. As he lunges, Yuma unexpectedly rushes in and bites Dover's arm, causing him to cry out in pain. The older assailant, who had been down, slowly gets back on his feet, and Dover yells at him to get up and deal with the children. Yuma, having let go of Dover, now surprisingly holds Dover's dropped gun and uses it to strike Dover, who becomes disoriented. Yuma then urges Oyamada to run, while Oyamada, now holding the gun Yuma passed to him, tells Yuma to escape, confused by their selfless actions to protect him. However, Dover recovers quickly and grabs Oyamada, slamming his head and beginning to choke him while ranting about pests invading the city and his frustration at not being taken seriously. Yuma, seeing his brother in peril, crawls towards the damaged Yattara and touches it. As Dover continues to choke Oyamada, who gasps that they don't need his kind there, Yuma yells out and throws Yattara directly at Dover. The creature flies into Dover's open mouth, and he convulses violently as Yattara apparently moves within him, causing sounds of cracking and oozing. Yattara then bursts out of Dover's body, now significantly larger and with cat-like ears, leaving Dover lifeless on the ground as Yuma and Oyamada watch. Yuma utters, "Meow meow," as the landlord of the apartment appears, startled by the transformed Yattara. The creature swiftly grabs the terrified landlord, chews on him briefly, and then swallows him whole. As Yattara turns its attention to the remaining older assailant, both Yuma and Oyamada cry out for it to stop. Yuma then steps forward, asking Yattara for a favor, and presents a large sum of money, telling the creature to take it for an apartment. The surviving assailant is flabbergasted by the money, questioning its origin and initially refusing it as shady. Oyamada, however, dismisses his concerns and asks if they can stay. Overwhelmed, the assailant relents, telling them to live wherever they please. Yuma also finds a pack of Benavel tablets amidst the chaos. Later, Oyamata is recovering with bandages, and Yuma notes his improved condition, attributing it to the miracle drug tablets. They decide to take some preventatively, and soon both children are asleep, with Yuma eventually crawling over to the now large Yattara. Sometime later, Yuma reflects on the recent turmoil, including Oyamata's illness and the attack by the association members, followed by Yattara's return and transformation. Oyamata admits he only saved Yattara because he thought they needed its power. As Oyamata drifts off to sleep, murmuring for today, Yattara subtly reveals more of its sharp teeth. Yattara experiences another dream that night, featuring a boy alone in a dark, cramped room, seemingly just trying to survive, and a tranquil scene by a river with a small hut. The dream depicts the boy in a quiet room, unreached by voices, until visitors arrive. Back in reality, Oyamata, Yuma, and a third, unidentified child are all shown sleeping peacefully on or near the massive Yattara. The narrative states that as the four of them slept, the chaos in the city intensified, fueled by rumors of a building's missing top floor, stolen money, and constant police activity. Amidst this turmoil, a new shadow stirs. The scene shifts to two police officers in an alley, complaining about their assignment to find a rumored 100 billion libs. The city is rife with crime, from yakuza to terror groups. One officer is startled by a noise, which turns out to be just rats and falling trash. However, his senior officer then notices a discarded, bladed disc in the alley, as the narration ominously concludes that on that day, more than one calamity descended upon the town, and a new threat, with eyes only for its prey, has emerged. We see a humorous depiction of Yattara, in a seal-like form, playing rock-paper-scissors, seemingly choosing paper. Yuma is then shown watching a TV program titled, Sea Monster Rock Paper Scissors, where a character suggests thinking outside the box next time, as, maybe that was too advanced. Yuma reflects that Yattara played rock the previous day. Yattara, now in its usual large, cat-eared form, makes a peace sign gesture. Yuma exclaims that Yattara won again and is awesome, while Oyamata looks on, somewhat frustrated but also amused. Nanato then calls Yuma for lunch, telling him to let the angel, know too. Nanato is looking through prepackaged meals, choosing a fried chicken bento, while Yuma wants omelette rice and yogurt. A new character, a girl with long dark hair in a ponytail named Setami, offers to microwave Nanato's bento. Yattara stares intently at the microwave as Nanato tells Setami not to stand so close. Soon, Oyamata, Nanato, Yuma, and Setami are all eating together, enjoying their hot meals. Yattara is also shown eating discarded food, which it started doing after the recent fiasco, presumably the battle with Warren, to prevent itself from weakening. Yuma asks if Yattara's food is yucky, and Oyamata comments that Yattara seems as bored with its food as ever, but at least it's not eating people, which is bringing him down. The narrative explains that human food was neither delicious nor disgusting to Yattara. It was a flavorless way to absorb nutrients. Eating these unsatisfying meals allowed it to store power and avoid the trouble of hunting humans in the city. There were many reasons for this change, but above all, Yattara had decided to raise the children it once abandoned, and they created a special feeling within it. Their bond deepened when they saved each other's lives, and they fell into a cycle of waking, watching TV, bathing, and sleeping together, a routine Yattara grew accustomed to. This marked a clear change in Yattara, though it had no idea what this new feeling was, only that something had taken root within it. Yattara sensed an unfamiliar organ had grown within it, an unknown feeling it knew must be special, but it hadn't yet figured out what caused it or how it worked. It knew it needed to find an explanation quickly, but a more pressing issue arose. The doorbell rang. Yattara, using a tendril, opens the door to reveal the old man from the previous chapter, the one who gave Oyamata the apartment and money, carrying bags of groceries. Nanato scolds him for being loud and tells him he's supposed to thank the old man. Oyamata grumbles that the old man keeps asking for half the store and should be more considerate, as Oyamata is also getting something out of this. The old man then presents them with ID cards, explaining they are their identification, family register, and proof of residence, meaning they can live freely in the country. Oyamata and Yuma are thrilled. The old man complains about the hassle of getting the forged documents through black market sources and all the papers he had to sign. As the children thank him profusely, the old man yells for Yattara to get its tendril off his arm, which it had wrapped around him. Oyamata tells him Yattara won't let go if he tries to leave, as it might turn them in if Yattara isn't watching. The old man retorts that he wouldn't dare say a word, as Yattara would crawl inside him and eat his guts. Oyamata then hits Yuma for scaring the old man, who is helping them, while the old man mutters, "Drop dead," and "Screw you, idiot," as he leaves. Later, Nanato scolds Oyamata for his spending, pointing out an expensive smartwatch and limited edition colored pencils he bought that they didn't need, especially since Yuma could have picked a cheaper version of the pencils. Oyamata argues they have 10 billion lib and might as well buy top-of-the-line stuff, referencing something they saw on TV. Nanato becomes very animated, saying she wants to treat herself too and lists things she wants, including a hairdryer. Oyamata initially says they can't do that but then suggests they can ask the old man tomorrow. Nanato, however, then states that the money was for impoverished children and that while it's fine if they use some, they shouldn't overdo it, as many kids have it worse. Yuma interjects, asking why they have to hold back for kids they don't know and that they need money for their own stuff. Nanato finds the hairdryer. Yuma then shows Nanato a packet of Manga Easy Super Sweet Mini Tomatoes seeds, saying he wants to grow tomatoes like the ones they had on their old veranda, which all withered. Nanato points out they don't have dirt or pots and that tomatoes are out of season, so they might not be able to grow them. Yuma is disappointed. Oyamata suggests they ask the old man for help, but Nanato says they can't make him carry that and they should pick the stuff themselves. Yuma then says he doesn't want to do it anymore. Nanato sighs, remarking how easy Oyamata is to read sometimes. Yuma then calls to Yattara, saying he wants to draw and asking it to guess what. Yattara grabs the packet of tomato seeds. The narrative explains that seeds are a source of life, and when sown and nurtured, a new life will sprout. Yattara began watering, fertilizing, and protecting Yuma, and as a result, he grew rapidly. However, Yattara had an especially pressing problem. The children's flavors had subtly changed for the worse. The change was due to several reasons: a virus, resulting stress, and a lack of nutrition during their growth. They were still delicious, but now muddled by a bitter, spicy taste. Yattara had failed in raising them. Failure was guaranteed if they lacked life experience, so Yara decided to gradually expose them to new things, as it no longer intended to abandon them. It hadn't yet come up with a plan to restore their flavors, though. Yuma tells Yattara he wanted to grow the tomatoes because Oyamata and Nanato both like them, even though he finds them kinda yucky, and he thought it would make them happy. Yattara is silent, and Yuma asks if it knows what happy means. Nanato then hushes Oyamata and Yuma, telling Oyamata, but not Yuma, that this plan could decide their whole future. She reveals that in 10 days, they're going to hit the town and have a birthday dinner for Yuma in a restaurant, intending to do everything they've missed out on and make Yuma pee himself with joy. The chapter ends with the question, what is Yattara thinking as it watches the three close siblings? Oyamata reacts to Nanato's plan for Yuma's birthday dinner in 10 days, expressing some regret and uncertainty. Nanato recalls a time 8 months prior when they were impoverished, picking through trash in alleys and looking longingly at scenes of birthday celebrations. Oyamata remembers it was Yuma's actual birthday, a difficult time when Yuma, though trying to be brave for his older brother, was clearly disheartened. Nanato explains her eagerness. Now that they have IDs, she wants to do all the things they couldn't before, especially celebrating the birthday they missed. She clarifies that the chosen date, 10 days from now, also marks 1 year since they arrived in the city, a year they struggled to survive feeling humiliated and hopeless. So, she proposes a big party to make up for missed celebrations and to celebrate Yuma's birthday and their anniversary in the city simultaneously. Oyamata is hesitant, but Nanato coaxes him, promising to watch her spending if he agrees to an outing in the open. Yuma overhears part of the conversation and excitedly asks if they are really going out. Nanato, flustered at being overheard, tries to downplay it, but Oyamata confirms that Nanato wants to go to a restaurant. Yuma is thrilled, exclaiming it will be their first real outing together. Nanato, recovering, tells Yuma it's just a few sleeps and meals away and asks if he's excited, to which he enthusiastically replies. She then tells him to go play with Yattara while she talks to Oyamata. Nanato explains to Oyamata that the restaurant visit is a surprise for Yuma and it needs to stay that way until they arrive. She worries that if Yuma sees them nervous about going out for his birthday, he might tell them to call it off to avoid trouble, as the world isn't always kind to people like them. They decide they need to create a fun mood for him. Yuma then runs back, asking if Yattara can take the train. He wants to go outside with Yattara and ride the train together, asking if Yattara has ever ridden one or even knows what a train is. Oyamata then remembers that Yattara has them locked in, a fact Nanato had also forgotten. Oyamata tries to persuade Yattara to let them go out, promising they won't run away and will just wander the town, do some shopping and be back by nightfall. He assures Yattara they won't tell anyone about it and suggests Yattara can hide and keep an eye on them, or even come with him. Yattara, however, remains unmoved, and the children are disheartened. Yuma sadly asks if they can't go. Nanato sighs, acknowledging they are too young to make a restaurant reservation anyway and don't have an adult with them. Suddenly, Yuma points to where Yattara was, asking where it went, as a tall, muscular man with long, shaggy light-colored hair and dressed in jeans and a bare torso appears, startling Oyamata and Nanato. Yuma, however, joyfully exclaims, "It's Meow Meow," and explains that for some reason, Yattara went all floppy, and now it's the old guy that gave me candy. Nanato and Oyamata recognize him as the creepy one with long hair, from the end of the hall, presumably a previous victim Yattara consumed. Nanato questions why Yattara is doing this, and Oyamata guesses the man must have really wanted to go out. Yuma, oblivious to their concern, tells the man he's so cool, can transform, and is good at rock paper scissors. He then challenges the man to a game, noting his huge hands. The man, who is Yattara in human form, plays, and Yuma wins with paper against the man's rock. Yuma excitedly asks Oyamata and Nanato if they saw him win. Oyamata and Nanato realize that Yattara is going to come outside with them in this human form. They all cheer, and Oyamata tells Yuma they'll make him pee himself with joy. Yattara, in its human guise, observes them, believing such happiness could be useful in discovering a new flavor, having seen people urinate in fear countless times, but never in joy. It decided to go along with Yuma's plan to test this theory and also wished to experience human society. Recreating its prey's bodies was simple as long as it remembered their form, and in this body, it could freely walk the streets. However, Yattara, in its new human form, attempts to stretch and speak but finds itself completely unable to, only managing grunts and contortions. It's bewildered, unsure if the body was always mute or if its previous wound caused this. The children are initially scared by its strange behavior, with Oyamata telling it to get off the table. Nanato notes that using the forms of the men from the other day, the assailants, could cause trouble, and it would need to find healthy prey in the city. Oyamata decides Yattara can get by with gestures and facial expressions, as it always has. Nanato declares that for the next 10 days, they will train Yattara to act more human, as it will have to act as their guardian, and the police might get suspicious if it behaves too strangely. They begin their training, with Oyamata instructing Yattara to raise its arm and say, "Yeah," for the surprise. When Yuma asks what the surprise is, they all shout, "Yeah." And Oyamata tells Yuma, "Are you ready to go outside?" Yuma then leads them in a series of enthusiastic call-and-response cheers about going out together, the city's dangers, following his lead, looking forward to it, and having a good time, with Oyamata, Nanato, and Yattara, in human form, all raising their arms and shouting in unison. Finally, Oyamata declares, "All right then, let's get ourselves ready to hit the town," as they all cheer. The chapter ends with a police officer in a car, looking for someone or something, muttering, "Not here." And then, with a glance in his rearview mirror, "Where's Yattara?" A final thought bubble reads, "Yattara is a guardian now, but who's coming for him?" Oyamata ensures everyone is ready, asking if Yuma went potty and if they have everything. Yattara, in its human guise as Tsugi Duchi, confirms, and with a cheerful "Yay!" from Yuma, they set off, finally with a sense of pride. Out on the bustling main street, Yuma is amazed by the sights. Nanato remarks on how crowded it is, while Oyamata nervously wonders if it's okay for them to be there and if they'll get caught. Nanato reassures him, telling him to keep his head up since they have their ID cards. Yuma is captivated by everything, from street musicians to large advertisements. Oyamata fusses over him, telling him to keep his ID visible but not to hand it over, to stay where he is if they get separated, and not to wander off. Nanato reminds Oyamata to tell Tsugi Duchi their cover story. Their real guardian got sick, so their neighbor, Tsugi Duchi, a native human, is taking them out. Oyamata, exasperated, says they've gone over it 1,000,000 times. Their plan is to first walk down Main Street to the station, then take a train around town. They intend to memorize the route and any shops that will let them in. Yuma wants to go up a tower and visit an aquarium, and Oyamata says if they have time, they can see where Nanato wants to go. Suddenly, Nanato spots a food stall selling hot sea puffs, a place she's seen on TV, and excitedly runs over, exclaiming they look delicious. Oyamata is annoyed at her sudden departure. Nanato orders 4 crab and cheese puffs from the vendor, who is busy sizzling the food. Just as Nanato is about to receive her order, a group of unruly kids shoves past, with one grabbing the sea puffs and another spitting on her. Oyamata immediately pulls her back, telling her to calm down and not fly off the handle, as Tsugi Yara watches. Oyamata reminds her they are there for Yuma's surprise party and can't afford to make a scene, as they likely wouldn't be welcomed anyway and might get ignored if they keep a low profile, but making a scene would be disastrous. Nanato is frustrated, saying it's their first real family outing and she wants to enjoy it, but Oyamata insists they don't have time for distractions. Yuma calls out to them, wanting to hold hands, and Tsugi nods. As they walk through the crowded streets, the narrative shifts to Yattara's perspective. Walking as a human is exhausting for it. It had never witnessed such prosperity. Everything in every direction was man-made, from the perfectly aligned buildings to the decorative plants. Words on signs fought for dominance, and everything in sight contained the spirit of man. This idea of societal rules was completely foreign to Yattara, hence its exhaustion. However, it recognized this as a valuable experience. To continue raising the children, adjusting to this environment was a must, and to do so, Yattara needed to observe its surroundings. It realized things would go much more smoothly if it could blend in. As Yara is observing people and advertisements, Yuma points something out. Oyamata, noticing Tsugi Yara, seems distracted by his cane, suggests they rest. Nanato, however, vetoes the idea of stopping at a fruit shake shop or a cafe, reminding Oyamata they have a plan and must stick to it. She warns that if they make unscheduled stops, they might get framed as bad guys, and even have their IDs confiscated. She tells Oyamata he needs to be more vigilant and not let their guard down. Suddenly, Nanato realizes Tsugi is gone. Oyamata is shocked, as he was right there a moment ago. Nanato spots him down an alleyway and rushes over, scolding him for running off. They find Tsugi Yara standing over a young boy on the ground with another, older boy looking angry. Oyamata and Nanato are dismayed, realizing Yattara got into a fight and hurt a native kid. The chapter ends with the thought, as long as Yattara's around, nothing can stay peaceful. Oyamata and Nanato are shocked to find Tsugi Yattara in human form, involved in an altercation in an alley. An older boy is yelling at Yattara, asking where it came from, what its deal is, why it's taking things out on kids, and if they are such a bother. Oyamata wants to intervene, but Nanato pulls him back, warning that no one will listen to foreign kids and they need to get Yuma before the police arrive. The older boy tells Yattara to speak up or leave them alone, while a younger boy, presumably the one Yattara hurt, lies on the ground. Nanato tries to quietly signal Yattara to use a whistle or something to alert them without getting caught. The older boy, frustrated by Yattara's silence, declares he'll see what the police have to say and pulls out a phone. Nanato, seeing this, charges forward, telling him to stop and that there's no need to call anyone yet. The boy is surprised, and as Nanato reaches him, she trips, sending both of them, along with the younger boy Yuma was with, Kokuru, tumbling. Oyamata is hit by a falling skateboard and then by a shopping cart sent flying by the collision, exclaiming in pain. An old woman emerges from a nearby shop, asking about the ruckus. The older boy, dazed, tries to blame Yattara, saying this guy caused the trouble, but the old woman recognizes him, asking if he still has a bone to pick with her and what he's trying to do, accusing him of causing trouble because she raised her prices. Defeated, the older boy and Kokuru leave. Oyamata, Nanato, and Yuma recover from the chaotic incident, with Nanato remarking she thought the cops would get them. Yuma explains that he saw the girl, the old woman, struggling with her heavy cart because the tires were stuck, so he got meow to push it. Then the older boy and Kokuru appeared, and things escalated. Oyamata is relieved they got out of the situation, but Nanato is less forgiving, arguing they wasted a lot of time and that if the cops had been called, they would have been blamed. She also points out that the older boy seemed to be protecting Yuma. Oyamata suggests they should have talked it out, but Nanato dismisses this, saying natives can't be trusted and will act nice before stabbing them in the back, reminding him how the shopkeeper ignored him. She asserts that they are nothing but trash to them and questions if Oyamata understands how much she has protected them. Oyamata counters that they have IDs now and if they follow the rules, maybe things will be different. Their argument is interrupted by the appearance of Kokuru, the young boy from the alley. Nanato is surprised, and Oyamata worriedly asks if Yattara swallowed him when it supposedly swallowed Yuma, a misunderstanding from a previous chapter. Nanato scolds Oyamata for getting caught up in anything and Yuma for not keeping his promise. Kokuru explains he was in trouble. Oyamata, trying to be helpful, offers him cab money, but Nanato tells him they can't send a young native boy back on his own and that he's safer than they are. Kokuru says his name is Kokuru, and Nanato tells him he can stick with them until they leave Main Street. As they walk, it's clear the children are unhappy, and Yattara recognizes this. The outing meant to make them happy has had the opposite effect, and Yattara, as the one causing problems, feels this cannot stand. Being in human disguise means Yattara can't act carelessly, but it needs to do something, though its next steps are unclear. They pass a group of men drinking outside, one of whom recognizes Yattara's human form, presumably from a past encounter, and calls him a traitor, destroying their city, accusing him of taking in foreign brats for government money. Another man drunkenly asks Yattara how much he's being paid for the 3 children. One of the men throws a bottle, and another confronts Yattara, asking if he has any idea how much having brats like you around costs them. Oyamata tells Yuma and Kukuru to ignore him, but the man grabs Yattara's human hair, taunting him about being on a flashy outing while they have to drink just to get through the day. As he's about to pour a drink on Yattara, Oyamata remembers Nanato's body language lesson. If caught in an annoying situation, just bow. Yattara bows deeply. Oyamata then steps forward, apologizing if they've offended the men and explaining they are in a hurry. The man calls Oyamata damn brat, acting high and mighty, and kicks him. In retaliation, Yattara punches the man with tremendous force, sending him flying. The man's companions rush to his side, one exclaiming, "Nariji!" Oyamata is aghast, asking Yattara what it just did. One of the men shouts that Yattara might have killed Nariji and didn't have to go that far. Nanato, panicking, wonders if they should call an ambulance or the police, as Nariji appears to be fading fast. Suddenly, a police car screeches to a halt beside them. The children are shocked, as they hadn't called the cops yet. One of Noriji's companions flags down the officer, claiming the man with the foreigners, Yattara, got violent. The officer, the same one from the end of Chapter 7, steps out of his car and onto its roof, dramatically declaring, "Fear is Yattara. The inhuman being that chased down the beast of gluttony is." The police officer dramatically identifying Tsugiduchi as Yattara. Oyamata shoves Yattara's human form, and the narrative explains that throughout humanity's 10,000-year history, civilizations rose to prosperity and then summoned Yattara, only for Yattara to gorge itself on the people, causing the civilizations to collapse. This cycle was an endlessly recurring nightmare, and the fear of Yattara, the harbinger of destruction and beast of gluttony, was passed down through generations. People on the street are shown discussing rumors about a secret coalition stealing 10 billion, with one dismissing TV news and another claiming to get news from memes. Suddenly, a person on an electric scooter crashes into Oyamata, sending him to the ground. The scooter rider yells at Oyamata to watch where he's going. As Oyamata tries to get up, the rider grabs him, threatening to tear the foreign brat to bits. Before the situation can escalate further, Yattara, still in its human guise as Tsugiduchi, intervenes, and its form seems to melt or contort as it touches the aggressive scooter rider. The rider recoils in disgust as Yattara's human face appears to dissolve. Oyamata and Nanato help the now limp Tsugiduchi to stand, while onlookers wonder what's wrong with him. The narrative reveals that in ancient times, some humans sought power that could rival Yattara. As a result, an incredibly similar beast was born. This new beast, it seems, has just attacked as a group of people with blank, diamond-pupiled eyes, like Yattara's, suddenly lunge at the scooter rider, overwhelming him and appearing to lift a car. Oyamata and Nanato, supporting Tsugiduchi, try to flee the chaos, but the officer who identified Yattara reappears, now also with the same diamond-pupiled eyes, standing atop the police car. He screeches, and more of these controlled humans surround them. The officer orders the others to move faster and get up. He is then suddenly swatted off the car by Yattara, which has now reverted to its true, large, dark form. Yattara seems to laugh as the officer and the other controlled humans are sent flying, crashing to the ground. Kukuru, who was with them, cries out as the people fall. He approaches the downed officer, who seems to be in pain. The other controlled individuals then begin to act strangely, slowly rising and clapping almost mechanically, saying, "I," repeatedly. Yattara observes this scene from a distance, near its own police car, before the group of controlled humans suddenly rushes away. Oyamata, Nanato, Yuma, and Kukuru find themselves back in a seemingly abandoned building or warehouse, with the injured Tsugiduchi. Nanato is confused about what Yattara meant and why they were targeted. Oyamata recounts seeing Yattara swallow the cop car when the officer went flying, but then the car and the officer reappeared, covered in bile. They realize Yattara must have spit them up. Nanato wonders if the officer struggled in Yattara's stomach, but Oyamata thinks that wouldn't have been enough. They decide they can't take Tsugi Duchi to a hospital but note he won't die easily. They opt to hide and keep watch, as the commotion might attract real cops. Yattara remembers its long-standing enemy, Warn. No matter the era, Warn always pursued Yattara, employing various methods like weapons, controlling humans, or growing large, but Yattara always repelled it. If Warn escaped, Yattara didn't pursue, as Warn was hardly considered a threat. But this time, Warn had severely wounded Yattara, possibly by doing something to Yattara from within its body after being swallowed. Something compelled Yattara to vomit, though it was unsure what. Back with the children, Oyamada is looking for his smartwatch, dismissing the natives as people who can go to hell. Nanato tells him not to waste time worrying about them and wonders if those people will be okay or if they'll stay like that forever. Kukuru, who has been quiet, finally speaks, asking if their family is like that other thing Warn, referring to Yattara. Nanato confirms Yattara is a monster but struggles to explain their relationship, saying it's living with them and is ours. Kukuru asks if it will chase them. Nanato, startled, hisses at him. Oyamada reflects that they are protecting a man-eating monster and are perhaps the weird ones. Nanato acknowledges it's not right but says Yattara is their meal ticket. Oyamada argues they shouldn't just leave Yattara when it got hurt protecting them and took them out as they asked. Nanato insists they should run while they can, but Oyamada refuses, leading to a physical squabble. Kukuru and Yuma watch, with Yuma commenting that they always do this. Kukuru then offers Yuma a bobby pin, noting his bangs make it hard to see and that he'll need to see if they end up running. Yuma accepts, and Kukuru helps him pin his hair back, remarking that Yattara is super cool too and that Oyamada and Nanato are usually not this mad and are nice. Oyamada, having won the tussle, tells Nanato this is for her own good. Yuma tells them both to stop fighting and scaring Kukuru. Oyamada says they've already dragged Kukuru into this and, whether they stay or run, they should go together as he doesn't want to leave them alone. Nanato asks Kukuru where they should drop him off. He mentions Nikurai Bridge, which Oyamada recognizes as being near the restaurant they plan to visit. Kukuru then hesitantly reveals he lives there. Suddenly, the officer, Warn, crashes through the window above them. The children scream as Warn, in the officer's body, attacks. Yuma tells the others to get out while he gets a cab. Nanato tries to fend Warn off with a pole but is overpowered. Oyamada tells Yuma and Kukuru to run. As Yattara watches, its eye pulsing. Warn, in its new era, is employing a new technique, poison. It's a brutal, curse-like poison that defiles and kills all who consume it. The children are trapped as more of Warn's controlled humans, including the old woman from the food stall, block the exits, beckoning them. The chapter ends with Yuma at a closed door, facing this new threat. A special, short, non-story segment follows, showing Yuma attempting to make a fluffy omelette rice, with Yattara's help, which ends in a comedic mess but a tasty, if salty, result. Oyamada, Nanato, Yuma, and Kukuru, trapped in a storage-like room as Warn's controlled humans pound on the doors and try to climb in through a high window. Oyamada is panicking, while Nanato suggests they try to escape through the door they came in. One of the controlled humans, the old woman from the food stall, has her head and arms stuck through the window, moaning. They are surrounded, with nowhere to run. Suddenly, a figure in a Hainpen mascot costume, a black and white bird-like creature with a tuft of feathers on its head, appears, pushing a large, wheeled cart down the hallway towards them. The Warn-controlled humans in the hallway seem surprised and make way for it. Oyamada, Nanato, and Kukuru are squeezed into the cart by Hainpen, with Yuma already inside. Nanato complains about the cramped space and the smell of old dust. As Hainpen pushes them, they notice some of Warn's people following. They manage to get outside, and Nanato suggests calling a taxi. Outside, however, they find the streets are swarming with Warn's controlled people. Yuma is confused, wondering if the cops were also taken over. Oyamada doesn't know and can barely make out if someone is giving them orders. The controlled people then line up, and one of them, a woman with a blank stare, holds up a red balloon. Others call out colors like yellow and blue. It becomes clear they are after the balloons Hainpen is carrying. Hainpen, who is Yattara in disguise, seems flustered, unable to get the balloons off. The children realize Hainpen is a mascot character for an event company called Loco Loco. Warn, still in the officer's body, appears and demands a red balloon, yelling red, as the controlled crowd surges. Hainpen, Yattara, makes a run for it, pushing the cart with the children. Warn and the controlled crowd give chase. Oyamada steers while Yattara pushes. They are cornered by Warn in the police car, who yells, Yattara, stop right there. They manage to evade the car and head down a hill at top speed, with Warrant's car crashing into a wall behind them. However, other cars driven by controlled people join the pursuit. Yuma, with a determined look, takes a red balloon, announces, "First come, first served," and releases it. Warren, in the officer's body, leans out of his car window and grabs for the balloon, causing a massive pileup as the other pursuing cars crash into each other. The children cheer Yuma's quick thinking, and they escape by pushing the cart off an overpass into a river below. They surface, sputtering, and Kokuru, having found a life preserver station, throws one to Oyamata. Ashore, Nanato thanks Kokuru, surprised he found the rescue equipment so fast. Kokuru explains that Nanato had told him about it, likely during their earlier, unseen conversation when she learned he lived near Nikurai Bridge. Oyamata praises Kokuru's proactiveness and strength of feeling. As Nanato embraces Kokuru in gratitude, Oyamata spots some of Warrant's people nearby and urges them to find a place to hide. Kokuru says his house is close by. Nanato questions him, and he confirms he lives around there. She asks if it's sturdy and easy to get into, as turning back is unsafe. Kokuru affirms it is, though he admits it's really run down. Nanato spots a building and asks if that's it, and Kokuru confirms. Oyamata realizes all their running around must have brought them closer to their original destination for Yuma's birthday. Nanato then reveals she had made a reservation for a birthday party at a restaurant called the Glance Restaurant, showing them a PIN number for entry on her phone. She says she knew the PIN would come in handy. Oyamata tells Kokuru he's coming too, and they prepare to enter the restaurant to hide. Next we see Warrant's controlled humans, identifiable by their blank eyes with diamond-shaped pupils, walking through the city, slipping past unnoticed. Nanato is at the entrance of the Glance Restaurant, inputting the PIN number Oyamata showed her. Kokuru asks what's wrong as Yuma looks on. The door creaks open, and Nanato announces it's open, ushering them inside. The interior of the restaurant is dimly lit and messy, with overturned tables and chairs, and white cloths draped over some furniture. Oyamata recognizes it as their intended restaurant, and Nanato remarks that all their running around brought them closer. Oyamata comments that the passcode entry explains why Warrant's people aren't inside and that it makes for a good hiding place, though they must have left in a hurry. Nanato, shivering and holding Yattara, still in its injured, cocoon-like state from Warrant's poison, says it's messy. Oyamata offers to look around while the others rest, but Nanato, still holding Yattara, insists she'll go, telling Oyamata to wait with that thing, referring to Yattara. Yuma says he'll go with Nanato. Nanato notices Yattara is shivering and asks if it's hurt or cold. She realizes it must be cold, as she herself is wet from their river plunge. She wraps Yattara in a cloth she finds, asking if it's warmer. She gently strokes it, apologizing for everything that happened, especially since Yattara was willing to take them outside. She laments that all he wanted was to make some fun memories for Yuma's birthday, but she knows Yattara had previously said they should abandon the children and wouldn't really do that because they are too important to him. As she's speaking, Yuma calls out to Oyamata, pointing to Kokuru who is being grabbed by one of Warrant's controlled people at the restaurant's kitchen entrance. Nanato clutches Yattara, saying she's got to do something. The narrative explains Yattara is nearing its limit, the unknown deadly poison destroying its body. It can no longer move or feel light, its only proof of life a fading warmth. Unable to resist, it awaits its demise, feeling no urgency as even opening its eye is too much work. As its life vanishes and pain fades, it feels itself being picked up. It rationally knows that if Nanato throws it away, escaping the pursuers would be simple. Yattara imagines the children, strong and with good survival skills, overcoming anything. On the brink of death, it sighs in relief. Suddenly, something spills onto Yattara. Without thinking, it opens its eye to see Nanato, having cut her own arm, letting her blood drip onto it. Oyamata is horrified, asking why she would do that and saying they need to stop the bleeding. Nanato, however, says Yattara is drinking her blood and that it's good. Oyamata is shocked she's going along with this, but Nanato explains it's all she could think of to help the angel, Yattara. As Yattara consumes her blood, Oyamata notices it's healing. Nanato grows weak, saying it's not enough. Yuma rushes to her side, saying he'll take her place and that they need to stop the bleeding. Nanato, faint, tells Yuma not to worry about her and murmurs, "One day, give them a birthday?" As she collapses. A "Happy Birthday" banner, presumably set up by the restaurant staff before they fled, is visible. Yuma looks down at the now larger, almost fully healed Yattara. Outside, Warren, in the officer's body, blows a whistle, and his controlled humans gather around him before marching towards the restaurant. He reflects that every time Warren has been defeated, it has gone underground to wait for Yattara to reappear. This cruel cycle has continued for thousands of years, but he believes that this time, Yattara will be subdued and Warren's ancient promise will be fulfilled. It can go home and see its mother if it defeats Yattara. Warren's spirits are high, but this focus causes it to fail to notice something. As Warren approaches the restaurant door, he senses something amiss. Peeking inside, the restaurant is dark. He enters cautiously. The room is silent except for the sound of crunching and munching. Warren sees Yattara, now in its large cat-eared true form, draped in a white tablecloth like a ghost, eating. Warren's controlled humans, including the old woman and the two men from the earlier confrontation, find a light switch or sound system control panel. As they try to turn on the lights, music suddenly blares. "Happy birthday to you!" Warren, startled, looks around. Yattara, with Nanato, Yuma, and Kukuru on its back under the tablecloth, rises up. The beast before it, as Warren perceives Yattara, was an incredibly fierce one. Yattara then transforms into a monstrous, multi-mouthed form, the birth of wrath, ready to confront Warren. Yattara is in its multi-mouthed wrathful form, confronting Warren, who is possessing the police officer. Yattara's blood boils with unprecedented heat and hunger. It then peels back its skin and spits out a separate, twitching mass, the poisoned part of itself, thereby curing the affliction. This expelled mass then seems to engulf and neutralize Warren's controlled humans, reducing the deadly swarm to mere feed as they are absorbed or consumed. Warren, in the officer's body, is left shocked as his forces diminish. Warren, now in a giant, monstrous form, cries out, "Yattara!" as Yattara, also massive, destroys the restaurant building they were in, emerging in its true, powerful form. Yattara then swiftly devours Warren's giant form, an act described as an outrageous bloodbath that decimated Warren's thousands in mere minutes. Yattara had never felt so powerful, its appetite for humanity not yet sated, and nothing remained to stop it. At long last, for the 7th time in 1,000 years, Yattara's gluttony was about to be unleashed. The ID cards they had obtained are shown lying amidst the rubble. The narrative then flashes back to before Warren stormed in. Oyamata, seemingly delirious or in a trance from Nanato's blood, offers himself to Yattara, saying it ought to make him go down easier. He tells Yattara to eat him, regain its power, and kick Warren's butt. He makes Yattara swear to bring him back once it's done. Yuma, frightened, tells Oyamata that if he's not enough, Yattara can eat him too, and Nanato echoes this sentiment for herself. Yattara accepted their offer without hesitation, which is what led to its immense power surge. The scene of Yattara about to consume Oyamata is interrupted by Warren crashing into the building. Back in the present, amidst the devastation, Yattara stands supreme. A news reporter is live at the scene, stating that police and firefighters are rescuing people from the chaos and that extensive damage to surrounding buildings has been confirmed. The report mentions that the riot near Chua Ward has been quelled, but mass confusion and amnesia have been reported. Oyamata is shown sitting alone in a dazed state, and Yattara, back in its regular large form, approaches him. Oyamata, still disoriented, looks up at Yattara. Nanato, Yuma, and Kukuru then find him. Nanato is relieved their plan worked, and Oyamata, with a weak smile, says he just wanted to hug Yattara. Nanato and Yuma praise Yattara, calling it cool and a great angel. The narrative explains that for the beast of gluttony, relinquishing its power and spitting out those it had eaten, Warren and his forces, was an unthinkable choice. However, Yattara had a reason. It wanted to raise these children. Nanato says they should leave, and Yattara, on top of wanting to raise them, also had something it needed to know. As they walk away, they are suddenly confronted by the older boy from the alley, the scooter rider from Chapter 11, and his companion. The boy is on the phone, telling the police he found the kids and that the kidnappers, referring to Oyamata and Nanato, are fighting back. Oyamata and Nanato try to argue, saying they aren't kidnappers and there were circumstances, while also telling Yuma to come back as he's with them. The chapter ends with Yattara sighing as annoyances never cease, and yet, implying a continued, albeit complicated, commitment to the children. The older boy from the alley, the scooter rider, appeared with a spread of food, explaining he heard about their disrupted birthday party and talked to Kukuru. He offers the food as an apology, though he clarifies it's pre-made and not restaurant quality. Yuma is thrilled, and Nanato politely asks if they may partake. Oyamata is suspicious of the mascot costume Yattara was wearing, and the boy explains it's a disaster-preventing robot and the reason they got out of their mess, while patting Yattara, who is still recovering from the poison. The boy leads them to a building called Toto Cafeteria. Kokuru and Yuma peek in and see other children inside. The boy explains they provide food, support, shelter, and even tutoring for hungry kids, largely supported by locals. He then presents a large pancake stack, saying it's all they can offer for Yuma's birthday. Yuma is overjoyed. Oyamata notices Kokuru hesitating at the door and encourages him to eat with them. Nanato invites the other children in the cafeteria to join, and soon the rooftop is filled with children enjoying the food. Oyamata is overwhelmed by the number of children seeking shelter after the day's disaster. Yuma is happily being fussed over by the other children. Later, Oyamata, Nanato, and Yuma are shown in bunk beds. Kokuru wishes Yuma a happy birthday, and Yuma thanks him, saying they dragged Kokuru into their mess. The older boy enters, and Kokuru excitedly explains to Yuma that this is the cool older boy who helped him out once when bad guys had their eyes on him, and also during the garbage picking incident. Oyamata is annoyed by the commotion. The older boy praises Oyamata for his actions. Oyamata is dismissive, saying he just did it because he felt like it, but the boy insists it's still worthy of thanks. Nanato embraces the older boy and Yattara watches. The boy asks if they take foreign kids too, and Nanato confirms they take any kid in need. Oyamata explains he'd heard of this place and wanted to check it out because he heard they give food to anyone, but Nanato had been skeptical, believing there had to be a catch and that natives couldn't be trusted, especially since they wouldn't feed kids like them for free. Oyamata says all Nanato did was keep them hungry, but the boy praises her caution, saying it's what kept the three of them alive. He then offers Oyamata a part-time job, explaining their application for support was approved but then ruined by the incident, Yattara and Warren's battle, leaving them low on materials and manpower. He mentions that 100 billion for charity was lost when the building blew up. Oyamata considers the offer as the boy says he's always welcome there. That night, as Kokuru sleeps, Yattara watches over him. The narrative reflects on Yattara's day. It remembered the taste of the children, Nanato's blood, Oyamata's offering of himself, which was vile but also a new flavor that gave it power. It was a superb flavor, joy. Yattara wonders if its palate has changed so much that things once delicious now tasted foul. Perhaps it had changed. For the first time, Yattara cared about things other than food and wanted to know more about itself. Elsewhere, a mysterious figure is looking at a monitor displaying Yattara's eye, noting they can't see anything important about its status. This person is informed that they, likely the government or a similar authority, think Yattara is a demon that will destroy their country and can't believe it withstood the poison or that Warren was used to attack. It was an advanced strategy, even suppressing police and military responses to let Warren run free. The figure is asked how long Yattara will retain that body, presumably its current form or power level. The person on the other end estimates 3 months. The mysterious figure, revealed to be the older boy from the cafeteria, smiles, saying Yattara won't die while it has those pet kids around, and that it will certainly consume all, as gluttony is its true nature, which will never change. The chapter ends with a question: what is the desire of those who know the ancient legend? Implying the boy is one such individual with deeper knowledge of Yattara. The remaining heat from the mysterious riot dies down. Oyamata is shown riding a bicycle through a neighborhood where demolition work is underway. He arrives at an apartment building and goes to a specific unit where an old man, Minji-san, is eating. Oyamata complains about Minji-san leaving cigarette butts on the plate again, this being the 5th time. Minji-san, frail and disheveled, surrounded by other similarly debilitated elderly people, yells at Oyamata for breaking in and threatens to call the cops. Oyamata retorts that they won't come, as Minji-san keeps calling them. Oyamata then helps Minji-san, who struggles to dress himself. Minji-san grumbles about Oyamata using the kitchen and tells him not to come back, but Oyamata reminds him that Minji-san asked him to come. As Oyamata leaves, the older boy from Toto Cafeteria, the one who offered Oyamata a job, greets him with "Yo." Oyamata reports that Minji-san isn't doing well and won't last long, adding that he wanted to punch him. The boy acknowledges this and asks Oyamata if he's used to the job yet. Oyamata replies more or less. They arrive back at Toto Cafeteria, where other children, including Nanato and Yuma, greet Oyamata. The older boy mentions he's just there until his next gig. Later, Oyamata is shown leaving with a bag of groceries. He encounters another elderly man struggling to carry a heavy box, complaining about his hips and why things are always left outside. Oyamata offers to help, takes the box inside for the man, and leaves it by a shelf. The man thanks him, and Oyamata continues on his way. He meets Nanato, who is also returning with groceries. She notes he must be busy if he's this late from work and asks how his job taking care of old people is. Oyamata replies it's not bad, as everyone has been nice lately and it's been weirdly peaceful, contrary to his expectation that the locals would cause problems. Nanato agrees, saying maybe the world is getting kinder. They arrive home, and Yuma greets them, making chicken curry. Kokuru is also there, and Yuma says the angel, kept an eye on them. Oyamata asks where Yattara is. Yattara is shown in another room, attempting to fold laundry but making a total mess. The four of them then sit down to eat the chicken curry. Nanato praises Yuma and Kokuru as good cooks. Oyamata critiques the store-bought roux, the underdone meat, and the need to drain and salt something, but overall, he thinks it isn't bad. Nanato asks Oyamata about his next day off, and he says it's the day after next, depending on the weather. She then remembers all the expired food in the refrigerator, saying they should eat it before it gets too dangerous. Oyamata dismisses this, saying they can cook their own meals now. Nanato argues they should freeze the expired food for emergencies, as too many toxins can lower stamina levels, and she heard they use preservatives that might get banned soon. Oyamata is surprised she knows this, and she mentions seeing it online and on TV. He agrees their lifestyle has improved and that Yattara has to pick through trash forever. Yattara affirms this. Later, the children are shown sleeping. Oyamata and Nanato are awake, and Nanato remarks that this all feels like a dream, living like this. Oyamata agrees, and Nanato reflects on the crazy stuff they've been through in the city, showing a montage of their past struggles. Yattara's initial appearance, the confrontation with the landlord and the Native Citizen Conservation Association, and the battle with Warren. She concludes that they survived, and Oyamata adds that they really have. He says that while they still have problems to solve, the four of them can handle anything from here on out. Nanato asks, "From here on out, huh?" And Oyamata replies, "Yep. Always." Later that night, Yattara is outside by a dumpster, looking at a discarded bento box. The older boy from Todo Cafeteria appears, observing Yattara. He notes that Yattara's body is weakening and its senses are dulling due to Warren's poison, which, despite Yattara's strength, couldn't be completely dispelled. He says he pities Yattara-sama. He then asks if Yattara wants to know what's happening to it, about its past, present, and future, claiming he holds the answers to all of Yattara's questions. He tells Yattara it must remember the whole reason they called it there. He then opens the dumpster, revealing himself to be sitting inside amidst trash, saying, "Even the gentlest touch holds a blast of ill intent," implying a hidden, manipulative nature. Yattara being led by the mysterious older boy from Todo Cafeteria into a First Mart convenience store. They go through the staff room and into a back office. The boy, whose name is revealed to be Darenji Darenan, apologizes for the cramped space, explaining it's the best he can do as the nation keeps a close eye on anyone approaching Yattara, so he waited for Yattara to come to him. He introduces himself as the chairman of an organization called Cleanland. Darenji tells Yattara that his organization is rather pessimistic and that Yattara's power is essential to them. He offers to answer any questions or requests Yattara might have, with the understanding that once they help Yattara, it will do the same for them. Yattara, via internal monologue, acknowledges it knows nothing about itself and was too distracted by its appetite to realize this until recently. Curious about what Darenji knows, Yattara decides to take the suspicious man at his word. Darenji says he will spare no detail and will start with the circumstances of Yattara's birth. He recounts that long ago, a king used black magic to create a beast, Yattara, to overthrow an opposing nation. This beast, unable to communicate, had an insatiable hunger and consumed mountains, rivers, and even castles. The king gave it a sense of taste, and Yattara declared, "Humans are delicious. But children are especially delicious." After destroying the opposing nation, Yattara swallowed its creator and vanished, seemingly satisfied. Darenji confirms this beast was Yattara. He explains that Yattara ate so much its body exploded, but it didn't die, instead taking on a metaphysical form and drifting across the world. In multiple different eras, Yattara has been summoned by those wishing to destroy the world, ambitious politicians, or those afraid of losing power, each granting it flesh. Once summoned, Yattara consumed entire nations. The survivors passed down tales of tragedy, of sins that should never be repeated. Darenji, in researching this cycle, realized Yattara is always summoned as if by fate, as humans continue to fight as though cursed. He refers to Yattara as a beast summoned and given flesh by humans, a mortal enemy of humans everywhere. Dorenji continues, explaining that the changes in Yattara's body, like its sudden weakness, are essentially incurable aftereffects of Warrant's poison, which their nation specifically designed to kill Yattara. Normally, Yattara's soul would divide and persist even if its flesh was lost, and they could prepare a new body for it. However, because Yattara hasn't eaten enough humans and the poison is weakening it, its soul wouldn't be strong enough to survive if its current body were to die. Dorenji states it's a hopeless situation, but there is still one option. Yattara must consume the children it has been raising. He urges Yattara to digest them properly, not spit them out, as the power those three grant might be enough to overcome the poison, referencing the power Yattara gained against Warren. Dorenji acknowledges that the children hold value to Yattara and that it prepared them by its own hand, so hesitation is natural. However, he questions if Yattara doesn't consider them food, having painstakingly raised and tasted them every night in search of quality. He then reveals a shocking truth. Those children are already dead. Their fate was sealed the moment Yattara ate them, referring to their initial encounter where Yattara consumed and then regurgitated them in new forms. The bodies Yattara spat back out are merely temporary. He explains that of two previous humans Yattara regurgitated who managed to escape, one lasted mere days, and another crumbled and died the second Yattara disappeared. This is because they are imperfect. When Yattara disappears, they collapse like their strings have been cut, as Yattara most likely absorbed their souls while granting them bodies. It's been half a year since Yattara first ate the children, and Dorenji doubts their temporary bodies will last much longer. This, he says, makes things simpler. He tells Yattara can either harvest them while they're ripe or watch them wither and rot, confident Yattara knows what to do. The scene shifts to Oyamada and Nanato in their room. Oyamada suggests they go back home to their old village, not right away, but soon. Nanato is surprised. Oyamada explains that the whole reason they came to the city was for a shot at a better life, and now that they have IDs and legal status, that's enough for a cozy life back home. He proposes they hand over all the money, presumably the 10 billion libs, and the four of them head home. The chapter ends with the image of a ripened fruit that has begun to dream, posing the question, what happens next?